Welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. First thing I want to know is when you was in school and you had your teacher and you'd ask you that simple question of what do you want to be when you grow up, what was the answer you'd give him?
It was either going to be a teacher even, or a policeman. I think they were the two that I was going towards.
Okay, and why? Why teacher?
I think it's because the teachers that I'd had in primary school, especially, were quite good, quite nice actually, and I thought that's maybe something I could do actually. And a policeman was probably more that little boy thing where you want to do stuff that's action packed. You're chasing the bad guys. You're catching the bad guys. That type of approach. So yeah, I'd probably say they were the two. If I was asked, I'd say.
Okay, cool. So when we got started, and in a sec we'll go over who you are actually from your point of view and stuff. But before I got you on the podcast, I asked you to kind of send me over your log line. So what is a summary of who you are, what you're about?
I would say I am the rebel, but with a cause.
Okay, I like that.
That's
Rebel
what I'd go with. Yeah.
Explain that to me a little bit.
I suppose it's probably a part of my DNA that I don't accept things if I don't agree with them. So if it's ways of working or injustice in any day life really, that then just it makes me think I'm going to push the boundaries. And I think I want to push the boundaries to find out what you're about, what about the situation, and find out the reasons why people feel the way they feel. I think causes, both professional and personal. I think you see things on the television, you see things around the world, and you think, oh, hang on a minute, I don't quite agree with that, and I want to do something about it. I'd probably say that's how I run my life. And how I run my life professionally and personally, I would say.
Okay, this is good. So, I guess, kind of, before we get into who you are, I just want you to do a favour for me.
Yeah, sure.
I want you to pick five numbers.
Okay.
From 1 to 100 for me, please, if you could.
Okay, so this is your randomness here, Danny. So, I'll go with 7.
Okay.
9. 23.
Yeah.
26.
Okay.
And 86.
Awesome. We'll come back to that in a bit.
They're not the lottery numbers you're going to put on tonight, are they?
Yeah, hopefully. And I promise I will share.
Oh, okay.
So, I know you. I know what you're about and this is one of the reasons why I'm on a podcast, but, people might not know who Mark is. And this podcast is fundamentally about the people behind L&D and the people who have gone from L&D into something else and kind of knowing more about the people behind it.
Okay.
So, I guess my question is who's Mark? Who kind of maybe give us a bit of a brief of your bio, where you're from, what you did, and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. So I'm from Bury in Manchester, and quite a sort of normal upbringing, primary school, high school, then on to college. But I always thought that education really wasn't for me, so I never really found something that I wanted to do. So at the age of sort of 17, 18, my dad said, you got to start paying your way in the world. So I joined O2 as in a call centre on the phones. And from there, the office environment was strange, but I felt that I could really make a difference. So the company had opened the new contact centre in Glasgow, and they said, do you want to go and help set that up? So I was like, yeah, sure. They were like 3 months in a hotel. I was like, what's not to love about that? I suppose hotel food for 3 months. I've actually found that out, but that wasn't too bad. And that move actually turned permanent because the role that I did there was supporting people, coaching them, take calls and deliver customer service. So I naturally found a way into coaching, and I sort of fell into it. But I liked the sense of getting the best out of someone.
Okay,
that's what I liked. And unfortunately, the company didn't see coaching as a long-term model after a couple of years, and I fell into learning and development. It's something that I think a lot of people, when you talk to people in learning and development, is something they set out to do. Some people, yeah, I wasn't. I didn't know what it was or what was included, but I knew it was respected in the organisation. And when I fell into it, I then thought this is something I can make a career out of.
Yeah.
So that was the O2 days, and I moved back from Glasgow eventually, yeah, that was really the O2, and then I moved away from O2 after 12 years, and I've moved here to Zen, where I'm Zen's channel development manager. So I'm responsible for the learning and development for our channel partners, resellers, and wholesale. And it's a different challenge, different environment, different budgets, different ways of working. So it's really sort of challenged me and pushed me out of my comfort zone after being at this company for 12 years. That's me professionally. Do you want to know more personally?
Yeah, let's do it.
So from a personal aspect, I'm married. Been married for, she's going to listen to this, so I'll best get it right, 3 years. And I've got a little boy called Harrison. He's just turned 2. So the dynamic of my life has changed over the last 2 years with Harrison arriving. It is the greatest job in the world. Channel development manager is good. Being a dad is better. But yeah, a huge amount of change over the last 2 years for myself personally. New job. My wife had a new job. Harrison coming along, him starting nursery, and any of the parents that are listening, when you put your child into nursery, not only do you pay the £1,000 plus a month for nursery fees, but they don't have to come home with snotty noses and colds and are ill. So there's those challenges as well. Do you know what I mean? So and balancing a new job is just, it felt like the last sort of 2 years really is just getting enough sleep to survive the next day, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting you mentioned around L&D and how you kind of fell into it. You didn't know until you was in it, right? It existed. Kind of similar with me. I didn't know L&D existed until I joined, and then I was like, wow, what a great experience, what a great opportunity it is to help shape these people. But I think one of the things which just jumped out then just from your statement is, right now you're at Zen and you're kind of in a different position. Yeah. And one of the things which I know about you is development is massive. And, if it's not a challenge for you and you're not developing, it's deemed less of a priority. Mm-hmm. So obviously you jumping into this role is a great challenge for you. But I guess so you did 12 years at O2.
Yeah.
What, did you have various managers throughout O2?
Yeah, it did. So, the culture and probably the longevity of me being there just basically allowed me to have more managers. Some good, some bad, some indifferent. I think the leaders that I had at O2, I took something from each of them, good or bad. So things I would definitely look to implement in my profession, and some that I would totally avoid. So yeah, I had a different variety of leaders, I would say. Okay,
so you mentioned great managers and then not so great managers.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest standouts from the great managers? What have you seen these great managers do, and then you've kind of took away and gone, from now on, I'm going to apply that in my role?
For me, the biggest word is being authentic. I think if you're authentic as a leader, you can give off confidence, and you've got a clear direction of the path you're taking individuals or an individual or a group of individuals down. And I think being authentic allows you to be just really open. I mean open in a sense where you're open to being challenged as well. Yeah. I think there's been a number of leaders that I've worked with who, they say they're open to be challenged, but when you challenge them, then they're not as open. Let's put it that way. But no, I think it's about being as open as you possibly can.
Okay, and I guess the flip side, what's the things what you've seen managers do other than not being authentic, where you think, whoa, I'm gonna learn how not to do this. What is any standout memories from you?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's interesting you ask the question and say, what do you not want them to be? Well, I was going to say not authentic, but you've ruled that one out. So, not making it easy for me. I would say the traits that I don't like is where it's that personal. I think they bring their personal element to it a bit too much. I think their agenda potentially. I think that can be people can see through that. If you've got a particular direction, you want to take it, and it's not really aligned to the company's beliefs. I think that can be quite detrimental to a team. I also think around, a lack of clarity. So a poor communicator, someone who doesn't communicate how they're feeling at that moment in time or how they're feeling about a particular change. I would rather someone say, yeah, there's a change happening now and this is how I feel about it. I think managers sometimes hide behind it and take the company line. I like it when they sort of use a little chink in that armour and they say, oh, do you know what? Yeah, this is actually how I feel right now, and I don't feel comfortable with this, but we'll get through it together. And it's a bit of a, it's not an us and them mentality. You're one of the team.
Okay, cool. So you're working with Zen now, and how long have you been here? Did you say, is it around 14 months?
Yeah, just over a year now. Yeah, 14 months.
So I guess, question to you: what's the one thing what you've seen? Oh, sorry, maybe it's a handful of things. What's the things what you've seen happen in O2, which you're going to bring to Zen? So, and I guess I know it's a sideways role, and it's a very different challenge and a different set of goals. But what are you gonna try and bring?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's things that I've learned at O2. I think it's necessarily things from that company. I think it's how I've evolved or developed over that 12-year period. Obviously been involved with a number of people that have left the organisation that I've worked for, but I've kept in contact with. I probably would take more from my network rather than from a particular business that I worked for. But implementing things here at Zen, you have to weigh up what the company here wants. I work in the channel division, and you have to listen to what the MD is saying. We've got a great MD here, Steve, and I think you have to listen to what the management team is saying. What is the direction that we're going in as a division, and how I support that. I think one of the biggest things that I learned over the last couple of years, especially in learning development, and I think a lot of L&D professionals don't see this. You have to be relevant. You have to provide value. I think the biggest thing that I've taken from my time at O2, I suppose, is probably you need to be a business person first and a learning development professional second. And anyone that thinks that's different, I'd love to go and have a discussion with them, because you have to know the business. You can't just enforce your ways of working on that business. You have to become ingrained in it as part of the culture. It's just really important. Are O2 and Zen alike as culturally? Yeah, there's similarities. The size is obviously not the same, but yeah, absolutely. I think you need to understand where you provide the value. That's important.
Yeah, massively. I think you mentioned we are the same kind of in a cultural way. I mean, coming into the office today, beautiful. I took a picture as I walked in.
Yeah, it's nice.
From the outside, it's lovely.
It's a nice place to work.
It's got a nice, feel-good vibe of coming in, and actually, and when you come in, within the Zen office, there's a couple of other people here for Asylum, but it doesn't look like a prison where everyone's secluded off and there's big fences and you can't go in that area, you can't go in this area.
No.
Even though it's separate companies and there's rules to kind of where you can and where you can't go.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like I'm in a prison.
No, absolutely, and I think that is testament to the culture here at Zen. Is one of the big things is happy staff. If things impact the staff here, it is well thought through, and that is the one of the biggest things that I've taken from here. If I was to ever talk to someone who was looking to apply for a job here or want to know about what Zen was about, you can't look any further than the values that it's got. It's happy staff, happy customers, happy suppliers. They're the three things that we anchor ourselves to. And you need to respect those. You need to respect those, because that is what has brought the success over the years and the growth of the company.
So what's, I guess, and I'll come back to Zen later on down the line anyway, but looking when we come into Zen, then the demographic of people is far and wide. It doesn't seem like it's any male dominated. Different ethnic backgrounds and stuff, which I kind of like. I think there's a thing of actually come to a company and have a look at the name, but actually get within the company and see what the day-to-day life is. And obviously, I've only been here for an hour so far, but it's just kind of got it's got a bit of a family feel to it, I find.
Well, it's funny you should say that. There is actually, I think, a full family work here. I think a mum, a dad, a son, I think there's a nephew, an uncle. I think we have got a full range of family. And I think what is what is really sticks out is the length of service here. You've got people that I work with quite closely, 17 years, 12 years, 13 years, 14 years. They've worked here for a long time. People work at a company for a long time because they like it. That shines through as well. The length of service here, I think, is a real key to the success.
So I guess and that for me does stand out. I guess when you go to some of these companies where they have their brands and their values and kind of this is our culture, but you can be yourself here, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you just got to go towards our brand and values and culture. I guess if you had to sum up, say, the culture of Zen and their values or behaviours, if that's what they have, or maybe we don't have any, and that's why it's so unique. But how would you sum it up? Maybe how would you sum up the culture of Zen?
I think it's a place where we are big enough to get things done. So we really are a company of a size that can get, support our customers, support our partners. But I think we are at a size where we can care. It's not lost, in big corporates, messaging to customers can get lost. It feels like the big man talking to the small man. I think Zen size and DNA allows it to talk at that common level. That's what I take away from it. It's a really relaxed environment. And like I say, the three things that it's anchored to is all around happiness. So for me, is that measurable? I think from a business sense, potentially not, but it works. And I think that's one of the things that I would say here. The DNA and the way the company's been made up through Richard, it's been successful, and you have to respect that.
Yeah, I think happiness is kind of a strange value to measure. Mm-hmm. When I say strange, it's not strange. It's a great thing to measure, but it's strange. It's hard to.
Oh yeah, it's not measurable, no.
But then I guess if you look at your attrition rate, your sickness policy, and actually how are just people vibing within the company from a day-to-day basis. I think a lot of people talk about, we need to get these business measured outputs. Well, actually, how well are your people just engaging with you as a company? How well are people engaging with your learning? Are they even bothering, or are we having to force people to go onto this learning program or look at this resource or whatever?
I think it's difficult within my role because my role is 100% external.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm an employee of Zen and Zen Values, but the division that I work in is channel. So my role is to support our channel partners, where there's over 300 of those, and I'm engaging with their employees, so employees of other businesses, to develop. It's a different mindset. Doing training internally, like I did at O2, is with some external elements. It's completely different to this. It's a total different setup. So my responsibilities are all external.
And I guess the people who you're having these calls with and these conversations with, they have their own unique set of values and behaviours which they must align to them as a company.
Yes and no. So within the channel division, you've got big partners, I would say, who who've got resellers themselves and resell products on. But you've also got the smaller businesses where they're family run. So it's a wide spectrum. So probably some businesses we talk to don't values and things that don't really resonate with the bigger partners. Then absolutely. But what is unique, I would say, is the alignment to Zen. It's one of the things that we measure. So yes, we want partners that can generate revenue. We want partners that do business and work with us. But ultimately, there has to be a cultural alignment there, because that's where good business and good partnerships are based from, is working collaboratively with similar or the same values.
Okay, cool. So just changing gears a little bit, if you was to offer a book as a gift to 3 people, maybe it's friends, family, what book would you offer them?
Wow. One of the books I would probably suggest is a book called Win or Learn.
Okay.
So it's by John Kavanagh. For anyone that doesn't know John Kavanagh, he's the coach for Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter, and their sort of rule is you either win or you learn. There's never losing involved. You can take something away from a loss, but you have to learn from it. So what's the reason you lost? What's the reason that didn't work? It's really, roughly based on the defeats that Conor had under. He had some noticeable defeats and how they came back and learnt from them, but also how the defeats to the author, John Kavanagh, when he was trying to build the business and build his gym up, he got knocked back, and now he trains probably, arguably, the number one sportsman in the world today. So yeah, I'd offer that one.
So I guess when you look at Conor McGregor, the one thing which he does, he has this very brash personality.
Yeah.
And love him or hate him, you just can't help but watch him.
Yeah.
And I know he has his own mindset coach, which is fantastic. Hence him walking into bringing on this alter persona, maybe his ego. So I guess what's your mindset? How do you change your mindset? How do you stop yourself from being, maybe you're having a bad day at home, maybe you're not. Maybe you're coming into work or you're going to this kind of big meeting and you need to gear change and change your mindset to how, is there any tips or anything you do beforehand or anything?
It's not necessarily anything I do beforehand. I think my mindset is of, I'm pretty sure there was an advert for Dr. Pepper for this, but it is what is the worst that can happen. I was speaking to a friend who was going for a job interview a couple of weeks back, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm really nervous," and da-da-da-da. What are you nervous about? Well, they might think I'm an idiot, and da-da-da. So, you're never going to see them again if you don't get that job. So what does that matter? And I think my mindset and the way that I tee things up is, what is the worst possible thing that can happen? What is it? And I think, this might be quite dramatic, but it's not really I don't think I've ever said this out loud before. I think the mindset that I have is you think of the worst possible moment of your life ever. Is it going to be worse than that? No. So therefore, anything above that is surely a bonus. It might be difficult, but it's not going to be as worse as that worst moment, deep, dark, moment you might have been in your life. Is it going to be worse than that? No. Standing in a meeting in front of MDs, no. Delivering or a proposal or putting your ideas across, it's not going to be as worse than that. So for me, that is the mindset people must have.
Yeah, it's really interesting how many people, and I guess one of the reasons why we do this podcast is, one thing I've noticed, when you speak to people and you get friendly with people in the industry, any industry, insert name, they have this persona of, this is me and I've got to talk with a very posh voice and pronounce my words very clearly.
Is that your posh voice?
That was my attempt.
All right, it could have cost Russian there to be a little bit.
Yeah, there's that as well. But I guess the reason why I'm doing this is because, one, the rawity of it. It's raw. Yeah. It's authentic. I slur my words when I'm talking fast and when I'm chilled out and relaxed, and I don't mind that. Yeah, I can switch on a different persona if I need to present to, a client or something like that. I can do that. But actually, what I found in the past is, you just being authentic and you being you, people buy into that because there's no wall between you. There's no kind of awkwardness. And I think if you can capture that and put it into an interview situation, then you're winning. And I think there's an argument to say the people who say, for instance, are interviewing you, there's a skill what they need to bring to interviews to kind of get the best out of someone anyway. Fundamentally, when you're interviewing, and I've done it in the past, when you're interviewing someone, you're basing someone around a 15, half an hour, 45-minute interview, however long it is, and it's a snapshot to who they are. And should you take someone on from an hour snapshot? Probably not. But in the industry we're in, that's kind of what we do. So why don't we try and make it so super cool and flexible and relaxed that we see a true reflection of that person and not just an hour's prep what they've done?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. I think going back to being authentic and being yourself, that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And I think, if I'm honest, I struggle with that. I think, I don't want to sort of sound like a bit cliche, but what you see is what you get. It is with me, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an emotional guy, and if things aren't going my way, people know about it, and that's I used to be more emotionally intelligent than I have been over a number of years. If something doesn't go my way or it isn't working, I sort of vent that externally. I used to be more internal with that, but and that can come across potentially like you're a bit of a bull in a china shop, or so you need to temper that. But I think ultimately it is that echo of being authentic to say, look, this is the way I feel about the situation. These are my views, but ultimately it's being well thought through. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah, and there's an element of not kind of putting yourself out there, being authentic. There's a true element of fear, I think, for that. When you look at, say, something on LinkedIn, social media, you pick your friends, but it tends to be on LinkedIn, you have these business associates. You put a video out there, and there's an element of fear because you think, actually, is someone going to take me on for being raw, authentic, and being me? Or actually, are they going to want this polished pebble? It's kind of...
It's an interesting one about LinkedIn. I think I've got some views on LinkedIn. I've got some views on networking, and I've got some views on learning and development as a whole on LinkedIn. I'm all for inspirational quotes. I'm all for a bit of a G up, but I don't want to see them on someone's post every 25 minutes.
Yeah.
You look at people who post on LinkedIn, and you have to. And I saw one today actually, and it wasn't an inspirational quote, but it was quite thought provoking. Is people sit in the background and just absorb. That's what I'd say my role is on LinkedIn and networking, especially, is that I absorb. Do I give back enough on LinkedIn? Probably not. I don't. Or in a network, I definitely don't. Is that because I'm fearful of putting my views across? No, I don't think it's fear. I think it's having the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah.
I think, I'd love to post an article, and I've been thinking about maybe doing it for a while now around, my views on learning and development and where it's going and how self-absorbent it can be. But what's the takeaway from that? Is it because I want to do it, or is it because I can give back? And I think a point in time, in the next 12 months, I want to give back to the community that I work within on LinkedIn or in a network as such. But I think it has to be the right time. You have to say the right thing. I think say the right thing at the right time. Don't just say it because you think someone wants to hear it.
Yeah. I guess for me, I think there's a risk when you put yourself out there that you're not going to tick everyone's box.
No.
I, for the life of me, can't stand e-learning. I think it's absolutely pointless, and nobody in the world has ever said, "Ooh, give me some more e-learning."
Yeah.
But I know a lot in my network love e-learning, and we can go back and forth, and we can go toe to toe. And I just think, do I want to do that? Do I not want to do that? Do I want to seclude myself? And I think anyone who's got ideas, there's always a risk. And anyone who's creative, there's always a risk that, one, you're going to get dampened. You go against the tide constantly to get your ideas out there. And then sometimes you can put a comment out there and then people take it a wrong way, or they'll look for a flaw within that.
Yeah.
And I guess, so let's flip it then. So L&D. What is your ideas on L&D? And maybe let's not do it in a massive article, but just maybe some snapshots.
So, so learning and development as a whole, I think you go to any conference or any meetings or a collection of people that learn and development professionals, the talk as for me hasn't changed since I joined a learning and development team. It's always, well, how do we show return on investment, or what's the next big thing, and how can we get there, and what's this and what's that. I think fundamentally when you talk to people and you listen to what they say, they do come from a place of honesty. It's a place of integrity. I think learning and development can be quite self-absorbed. I think it needs to look more out on itself, not in on itself, because working in learning and development, if you're sat around a table with a board or a management team, is learning and development the number one topic on that agenda? No. Is it the second on the agenda? No. And okay, you might want to put it third, fourth, fifth, whatever. All right. It has a place and it's great, and it's and people might say, well, why is he talking like it's about his own industry that he works in? I think we are an enabler for points 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can enable the business to increase its revenue, increase its customer service satisfaction. We're an enabler. And I think the sooner we accept that position, we can move on. I think the point you made about e-learning it is great. I think the e-learning battle I've gone full circle with. No, I don't like it, or it serves a purpose. And I think I've fall into a category of it serves a purpose. I think depending on how your business is set up, depending on the budget of your function, but I think it needs to be used as an option. It can't be the only way to learn. So the only way you're going to learn how to do this is to do this e-learning module. Why? Why is that the only way? Why can't it be more blended? And that's the message. I'm not talking about blended learning here, by the way, guys. So don't get it twisted. What I'm talking about is offering a variety, a pick and mix approach. So I can learn a bit from the e-learning module, I'll learn a bit from the handout, and take it from that way. I think that's an approach a lot of L&D professionals need to take. I think, we've had discussions before, Danny, around, are we going to use this new technology? Are we going to use this new technology? Are we going to do this? And you know my thoughts on it. My thoughts are shiny, new, let's use it. Yeah, I'm not against that. What I am against is using it hook or by crook, because the same people that do that are no better or worse off than the people that continue to lose e-learning when it's not valid. Yeah. So what I mean by that is the new shiny thing is shiny, it's new, it's great, and it might revolutionise the way we do learning development. But if you use it in a situation where it's not warranted, you're just as bad as the people that continue to push e-learning when that's not warranted. So it is a fine balance, and I think the industry needs to balance itself. The panic around GDPR, for example, and what people are doing around that has been wild. And I just think we need to just take a step back and look at where we're at, where we're going. There's always debates around, is an LMS needed? Is this needed? Is that needed? Okay, is an LMS needed? Yes or no? We can be here for days on that. I know your views on that. But what I would say is, we do need to be able to measure certain elements. And if that isn't through an LMS and it's through different ways, that's fair enough. But like I said before, it's horses for courses. It's business dependent on what their values are and what they're trying to get out of it. And I think it's about being respectful for each other's views of the trade. If we were plumbers or plasterers, all right, we might not have as much to talk about and much debate. But you're going to have people saying, well, I'd rather use that mix to mix this wall versus I'll use this method to do that wall. It's not just in learning development where this great debate beckons. I don't think they sit on podcasts and talk about it, personally, not in some plasterers. But we're no different to any other, trade, or industry. I just think we've got to be less self-absorbent, look at the business we're in, and really share more with each other. And I think certain elements and pockets of the community do share, but I'd rather it be a collaborative share rather than I believe this is the way forward, down with e-learning, down with the LMS, down with new ways of working. I think you can take elements and sprinkle it over what you're working on.
Yeah, I guess from an e-learning point of view, we were sat at the LPI event.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth, and I was like, it's really interesting that the board on there, the age of the people on there, we're all talking about millennials, yet there wasn't one millennial on there.
Yeah.
It was funny that most of the people on there was releasing a book at the same time. I mean, shock horror. Don't get me wrong, I love LPI. I think LPI have got some real good ideas. I think, they're a non-for-profit, but still business in a way. Mm-hmm. And same with CIPD. I kind of always go back and forth with LPI and CIPD. And I guess the reason why I'm talking about that is because, when I looked at the event, there was a lot of e-learning people there. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's a need for it. There's a need for it somewhere. But I guess one of the best pieces of e-learning I've seen was remembered for the theme, and nobody can recall the information what was on there. So a real good one was this great e-learning piece, and the theme was amazing. It was so good. It was like a true game. Had like a feel of like a Matrix kind of thing, and it was really interesting. They was like, oh, this is fantastic, it's going to change the world. and the theme and the designer who designed it was brilliant. However, you recall that information, nobody could recall anything about it. They could remember it had this theme, but they can't remember any of the information. So I'm like, right, okay, so what value has that served? We've invested a lot of time into this great piece of e-learning, the design, the flow of it, but actually how many people, fundamentally, it's a tick box exercise to say, all our people are GDPR compliant.
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue with the point around the compliance element. I think there are always going to be certain elements of certain roles where, you know, health and safety or compliance is required, and it does need to be a tick box exercise. And I think in order to keep costs in line, e-learning is the easiest way to do that. I'm not heavily involved in compliance training, so, you know, I can't give my opinion on it. What I can give my opinion on is the whole, let's sit someone in front of this module, get them to, you know, do a knowledge check at the end. You know, do we want people just to pass a knowledge check at the end because now if they do that, they've passed it and now they know what they're talking about? No. Does it serve a purpose? It does serve a purpose. It doesn't serve the entire purpose. And what I mean by that is it has to be supported. I think if you're going to use e-learning or any solution where you believe it might be a slight tick box exercise, and I think in some organisations they still want to see the numbers, who's done it, when did they do it, when did they pass. As long as that isn't the prime source of the learning, and there are other things that can branch off that, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So I think, you know, take where I am at the minute. You know, we're training over 300 partners. You know, they're based all around the UK. Is e-learning the prime method? It's a leading method because it allows us to train, you know, more partners and give them the knowledge that they need. But to offset that, we've got supported documentation, and we're working on having a, you know, when you're placing an order or when you're going to do some fault diagnostics and you don't know what you're doing, rather than contacting us, you can just click, I don't know what I'm doing. It might be called something a bit more better than that. It might help me, potentially. And it'll take you through it there and then. A how-to video, for example. I always use the analogy of, if I want to go home tonight and the wife says to me, can you bleed the radiators? I'm no good at DIY, by the way. Do I go on a plumbing course? No. What I do is I go on YouTube and watch a guy do it, and he shows me. That is where we're at. I think, you know, obviously you've been to these events before and they say, oh, you know, it's the Netflix of, you know, L&D. That term, it makes me sort of feel slightly uncomfortable. But it needs to be the right learning at the right time. If that's e-learning, it's e-learning. If it's not, it's not. And I think we need to be comfortable with that. You know, I'm not saying it's blended learning. What I'm saying is it's offering a selection. You know, it might be a handout, but if that handout goes into 20 pages, 25 pages, 30 pages, it's not a handout, it's a book.
Yeah. I guess it's the thing of just for me, just in time and just the right amount. And we've spoke about this in the past. Yeah. I guess for me, the knowledge checks at the end absolutely don't do anything in my take on things, because I think they prove nothing, a knowledge check. They prove that you can answer some questions and then you can remove it from your memory. And I suppose this comes to the fact of why exams are absolutely pointless.
Yeah.
An exam. What is an exam? It proves that you can cram your knowledge in.
Yes.
And it proves that you can recall your knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you ask them to month's time, reflect upon that, recall it, maybe a bit longer than a month. You won't remember it. It served its purpose for a knowledge check to pass a knowledge check, not to prove a learning.
Yeah, it's interesting because a couple of days ago I was talking with the guys in the team, sitting next to the sales guys and product guys here, and we were saying, what do you remember from school? Like, what do you genuinely remember from school? And I think we had worked out the different types of triangles, so like isosceles triangles, that type of thing. I think someone said a sentence in French. Someone worked out what pi equaled, only to maybe 3.142, that was it. And it's right, it is that. It's that type of, well, I don't remember, because that's the way you're taught, is to remember things, and once you remember them, you can pass an exam. Once you pass an exam, you know, you can go on and do bigger and better things. I think there are better ways of doing it. I think one of the things that I've been looking at recently is around, you know, on the job doing training. no better example than that is probably your driving test.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? I think, okay, this element's been brought around. What does this do and what's that do? If I pop the hood of the car outside, I couldn't tell you where half the fluids are meant to go. That wasn't in when I passed my test, but actually doing it on the job, you did that. You're driving a car. You weren't pretending to drive a car. You weren't being told how to do a car. You're actually in the car from day one. And that's what I think is a concept we could use. You know, you're putting someone in front, in a car, doing that job, doing that task from the first lesson. There isn't 10 lessons building up to it, and then you go and do it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, can you see the driving test being done in an e-learning and then going, hey, there's your driving license? It just would not work.
No, not its own, but it's interesting because the theory test is, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
The theory test is a memory test.
exactly, it is. I mean, it's done digitally to a certain degree.
It's like the stopping distance.
Yeah.
Of you. You know, what's the stopping distance of you from this distance to that car? I cannot remember that for the life of me. There's a mathematical little workaround to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But fundamentally, does it train me to go, oh, am I X amount of meters from a car when I need to do an emergency stop? No. I just brake, I react to a real life situation, scenario when that happens.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I think, and that's why there's other factors in that. You know, how good are your tyres? How good are your brakes?
Yeah.
How are your reactions? I think there's different variables in that. But I think
It's a great example of that.
Yeah, I think the driving test, and people being on their lessons. We're not messing about it. This person's in charge of a car. Yeah. So, okay, you don't drive Hummers or anything like that. They're mostly driving a Micra or a Corsa, so it's going to be more dangerous to them than it is to other people. But let's take that example for it. We're not letting people do a particular task, do a particular job because they haven't passed an e-learning module. We give people that just hand over the keys to a car. Okay, it's dual controlled, but let's think about that for a second. We'll go back to the point I was making before. What's the worst that can happen? I think we do need to. It is horses for courses. I don't want to rabble about it, but I think we need to be respectful of the learning that's out there, but really look at the value it's providing. Is there a better way of doing it? And I think if you ask people, is there a better way of doing it? You have to come up with that better way. You can't just say e-learning for me is no good.
Yeah. What
is the alternative? With using all of the, knowing all of the facts, the business, the values, the finances, all of these different things you take into consideration. You can't just say e-learning is no good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you know that. I know you know that. But
I guess, and you mentioned a good point about the whole magpie syndrome. Oh, shiny new thing. Let me use this, and then I'll oversaturate it. And I think you see that quite a bit recently. Everybody wants a chatbot now.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I created a chatbot. I used it as a demonstration tool, and I did a whole presentation through a chatbot. But I used it just to understand it and understand how I can break it, understand its limitations. I guess going back to the school thing which you mentioned, for me, what you will be able to remember about your school is your teachers' names who made the impact on you.
Okay.
And it might be the impact. You won't remember all of them.
No.
Because a lot of them will be grey. But you remember the ones who made you really happy.
Yeah.
Your favourite sessions, your favourite lessons, and you made the ones who was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Mine was my maths teacher.
Yeah.
Mr. Chadwick. Shout out. He was a top guy, real good guy. Hated his sessions and I hated the way he delivered. But as a person, he was great.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of other teachers, and one of them was brilliant. It was my English teacher, which irony of it is I have dyslexia, so she was always struggling. But fundamentally, I can remember exactly where her classroom is in the school. I can remember how to get there. I can remember what the sessions were like and everything, how she did things. And how she did things fundamentally stood out from the other teachers, how they were doing things. But this is a reason why we remember our bullies' names when we was in school.
Oh, were you bullied, Danny?
Yeah. Back in the day, I was bullied. So no, I went bullied. But there was one instance, and I can't remember. I was first year in secondary school. He was fifth year, big guy. And for some reason, he picked me up and slammed me into the lockers. That was the only instance where I had with him. Yeah. But I can remember his name. It was John.
Do you want to shout out to John?
No, because I don't know. Yeah, I actually drove past John a while back. I didn't veer onto the pavement or anything. I can't remember the reason why, but I can remember exactly where it happened, how it made me feel, who he was. I remember that I was going into music class.
Yeah.
And I just think there's more to the fact of reflecting upon an emotion. our memories, our emotions become our memories, and our memories are what we use to recall information. And I think that's the reason why people are remembering GDPR for the theme, because this is good. This feels a little bit different. I remember this.
Yeah.
Can't remember any of the content though, which
No.
is a shame. I guess, we can put the rights to wrongs of L&D, and there's areas of L&D which is really fickle. I think my role originally was an experiential designer, and I was doing this before that term come out. I joined a company and that was my label what I was given, and nobody was using that label at the moment. And now all of a sudden, these e-learners now are changing their titles to experience designer.
Yeah.
And they're jumping on the newest label. They're jumping on the newest trend. So what you'll see is eventually you'll see these e-learners declining as a job title, and everyone will be an experienced designer, but fundamentally they're still e-learning designers. And I guess e-learning, yes, it has its need when needed. I feel like your e-learning shouldn't be longer than 15 minutes. That is just a rule from what I've kind of always,
Yeah.
But
it goes back to that. It goes back to the horses for courses thing. I think it's fundamental.
It does. It does. And I guess it has its need. And for a big company, if you need to roll something out to maybe people working on sites or phone masts or whatever, the one thing what I have noticed is companies tend to go, great, we've got this learning what we need to put out, and I hate we've got this information, maybe it's not learning, maybe it's whatever they want to call it, and the first thing I see is, okay, let's do an e-learning. I'm like, and it's going back to what you said, it needs to fit the need of the people and the business. And I guess shout out to the e-learners is, don't just be so fixed mindset. You are designers, but kind of, just because you do e-learning design predominantly doesn't mean that everything's got to fit in that box. But yeah, anyway, we went off on a tangent, Ed.
Yeah, man, so it's all good.
So we've talked about e-learning. I guess and part of this podcast is to know more about you.
Yeah.
And there'll be some random questions here. So 80-20 rule. Idea is 20% of my contacts in my phone I call 80% of the time. The other 80% of my contacts I never really call. So what's your 80-20 rule? What's something what you do which is a small amount of something which gives you the most impact or the most information back? And it could be personal or professional.
I'm going to go with the personal element. I think it's not network as in professional network. I think it's your friends. I think if I think back to my dad says to me, he said this years ago, and it will always stick with me, is he'll say, you can probably count your real friends on 5 fingers. Yeah. That's it. On a hand. You're able to say. And so I said, well, that's pretty sad, Dad. He's like, okay, well, if, for example, you needed money tomorrow, and you called such and such, would they come? No? Well, yeah. And I think if it's mainly like money, might be other form of support. So those people you can call at 4 a.m. and say, I'm in trouble, can you help me?
Yeah.
They're the people. So for me, it's that, there's people that, I still class them as friends, but ultimately when it becomes sort of difficult, are they there? And I think that's what you need to look at, I think, in regards to the 80-20. I think about the effort they put in with me versus the effort I put with them. And I think you've got some, I've got some friends where I haven't seen them for probably 4 or 5 years. They've had kids, I haven't seen their kids, they've not seen mine. Would you class them as a friend? Well, Facebook says I'm a friend with them, so there we go. We'll have that, shall we? Not really. I think there's people that you put effort in with and you get as much in as you put back. And I think sometimes you put effort with people that don't give the effort back to you, so therefore they fall into the other category. I'd probably say that's where I apply the 80-20 rule.
Okay. So if the role what you're in now, let's do it 2 ways. Let's do it from your experience from L&D and the experience from Zen now. In your L&D role, with your L&D head hat on, what 2 hours of that whole job, maybe it was the design, the delivery, the conversations, the this, or that, whatever. If I said to you can only do 2 hours of that whole role, which 2 hours of a role would you pick?
So of the role I do now, or just an L&D role?
Let's go backwards first. So we'll go from O2 and then to Zen.
Only could do 2 hours of it. Probably I would say facilitation.
Okay.
So I think I have this debate quite a bit with a few people who, as soon as you move up the sort of the chain in regards to the management levels and more senior within learning development, you still have to fundamentally, for me, be able to facilitate, deliver training, and you must enjoy it.
Okay.
I think if you don't, you're not in the right job. I think you need that bread and butter of being able to facilitate a session, no matter what the topic. I think for me is fundamentally the bread and butter of any learning development professional's job.
Yep.
No doubt there'll be a few people listening to this going, "No, that's a lot of nonsense. I love doing this, this, and this." That's fine. But what I say is, I think if you're in learning and development, strip it all back. Facilitation is the point of the 2 hours that I'd take from that.
I'd agree, 100%. I firmly believe you cannot be a good designer if you have never delivered. And I would love people to challenge me on this as much as you want. Challenge me all day. Fundamentally, if you do not understand how a room engages, how can you design a course? How can you design a room of training? Mm-hmm. If you don't understand how the room works, how people work, and you can't understand how to adapt and deliver to different people in that room, how can you design for them?
Yeah.
You just can't do that. Yeah, you can talk to me about, oh, well, let's have a look at the UX and the user interface and all this and stuff. How about you getting them in with people who's going to use that first? Mm-hmm. So 100% with you on that one. Okay, so talk to me for Zen.
So 2 hours. I'd probably say currently it's going to be around, I think going out and meeting our partners. I think, again, it's the face-to-face element for me. So I have a lot of conversations over the phone because for geographical purposes and demands, it might be only a half an hour call with a partner down in London, for example. But I absolutely love being with our partners, speaking to them. What are their business challenges? How potentially can we support them in that? I'm going to see a partner next month to deliver a session around being able to sell a more advanced product for us. The benefit that will have for them and the benefit that will have for us as a division, if it was to be successful, is huge. And I think it's that. I think it's that, being able to speak to people who are not part of your organisation, who you're going to be doing training for, understanding them and understanding how you can pitch the training. So I think it's similar to the first example that I gave, but it's around that real training needs analysis with a partner to understand what their business plans are and how you can support them in those. You're not creating them for them. You're not doing change management or anything like that. It is supporting them to enable their staff, because they don't have an L&D function. You're being that extension. And I think that's probably the most rewarding job. And have I felt it wholeheartedly as I've been here for this amount of time? No, there's been a lot of foundation work that's had to be done. We're getting to that point now. We're talking to partners and saying, what is it we can do to support you? And they're not telling us what the end result is, by the way. They're not saying, well, I'd like a 15-minute e-learning module on that, please, Mark. No, it's none of that. We still have the true consultancy element back to them. But it's listening. It goes back to the point I was saying before around business people first, L&D people second. That in this role is key, to listen and hear what an organisation is doing and how you can fundamentally support them. Okay,
so let's change the gears again.
Okay.
So, random question. If Mickey is a mouse and Donald is a duck, what's Goofy?
That's funny because my son had Mickey Mouse on this morning. Goofy is a dog? It's not a dog. What is it?
Is it a dog? Because Pluto's a dog, right? Mickey's, Goofy drives a car. I'll leave that one with you. So, if it was to kind of, how do you switch off? So we know, you're so busy and stuff like that, and it's kind of, everyone's busy, right? Everyone's busy, and
are they?
Apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, apparently. So a lot of people are busy.
Okay.
And we've got the
professional... there's a perception they're busy.
Yeah.
There is that. Okay.
Listen, just walk around with some books and walk at a fast pace. You're fine.
As long as you've got a clipboard in your hand.
Yeah. And a pen. You need a pen. So I guess, assuming everyone's busy, and you, like you mentioned, you got a kid here, your wife, and there's that thing of being able to stop work and pick up personal life. How, we talk about stress and mindset and well-being and stuff. How do you switch off?
I think the way I switch off is, I've got a short commute. It's only 10 miles.
Okay.
So you can do that in about 40 minutes in this traffic on the M60. For me, that is the wind down. I do a lot of thinking in the car. I do a lot of thinking in the shower. I do a lot of thinking walking the dog. A lot of that is work related. But that journey from when I finish here at the office to traveling home, that's when I shut down. So the sooner it's like, it's a little bit like the reverse technology of, say, Tado, for example, where it knows you're getting closer to your house, so it puts your heating on for you.
Yeah.
My brain sort of knows I'm getting close to my house, I need to shut down. Because if you walk in that front door where you're picking your son up from nursery and you see your wife for the first time, and you're taking your baggage from the day in, that's not good. You need to be able to shake that off. And I'm going to be honest with you, that has been something that I've had to learn in the last 12 to 18 months. Because if you go into a hectic environment where you've got, Harrison, going to have his bath, and the night can go on with itself. And if you're not fully present, that's a problem. Yeah. And I don't think I was fully present a lot of the time, in maybe the first 6 months.
Okay.
And then when you blink, bang, Harrison's 2. You're never getting that time back. And one of the things that I sort of said, I'm not for New Year's resolutions, new year, new me thing, but it just happened to be around the same time. Is I said that I need to be more present, in a moment, because life goes so quickly that you're going to wake up one day, you're going to be 50, I'm balding as it is, do you know what I mean? And I'm 31, and you're going to be like, what happened? I always said when I was at 21, wow, 30 feels miles away. I'm 31, 40 feels miles away, but it's not. And then I'll be 50. And you've got to weigh up, I'm not saying this, let's live for let's live for now and all this type of stuff. But one of the things I always say to my wife is, this is not a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
At all. So have no regrets and just do what you want to do when you want to do it. So to wind down, for me, it's being able to do what I want. So, and I've got a great relationship with my wife, Kirsty, in regards to actually watching the football. It's not going so well at the minute. I'm a United fan. Or just going out for the lads and have a drink, or, it's around switching off. But I think when people say I'm busy or I'm stressed or work's getting on top of me, I've got to take some home. Don't get me wrong, there's nights I'll log on and do work. That happens. But that drive home, it has to be a gradual switch down. Once my car hits the drive, you're dad. You're not channel development manager.
Yeah. So, I guess we know, Harrison and his missus are kind of, your world.
Yeah.
But what's been your biggest personal achievement? And I want personal, not professional.
Okay, so my biggest personal achievement is back in 2016, I turned 30. And it was a bit like a midlife crisis. I was sat on the sofa with Kirsty and I said, I'm going to do boxing. She's like, what? You're soft as anything. There's no way you're doing boxing. So I signed up for an event called White Collar Fighter.
Okay.
And it was basically 8 weeks training. So 4 weeks you would train as a massive group of people. You do they tried to sort of, make you cry with burpees or whatever. I hadn't been to the gym in a long time. I wasn't fit whatsoever. And for 4 weeks, you didn't know who you were fighting. And at week 4, they went, this is your opponent. And It was proper stare down like the professionals do. And
I will break him.
Being the guy, yeah, I'm going to crush you type thing. And then it all led up then to fight night, which was at Bowlers in Manchester. People don't know it. It's a big sort of venue. There's over 1,000 people there. Friends and family had come. They paid like £25 a ticket. I wouldn't pay £25 a ticket to go and watch me fight. But and it was 3 rounds, 2-minute rounds, and I was the second fight on. And I trained so hard. I lost probably about 2 stone in the whole entire training.
I remember seeing you. I remember I hadn't
Be
seen you for a while.
Be careful what you're going to do.
I remember seeing you. I hadn't seen you for a while. I can't remember why. I think I was working away or something. And then I seen you come in. I was like, sweet baby Jesus.
Yeah.
He's like a different man.
Yeah, I worked really hard, and on fight night, I just wasn't going to be denied. I was going to beat this guy one way or the other, and I beat him. Unanimous decision over 3 rounds. And people can say, "Oh, that sounds a bit of a strange, greatest achievement." Yeah, I could have said becoming a dad. That for me is unrivaled. My wedding day, they're probably two standout dates. But this one was, there's no way on this earth I knew what I was capable of before signing up to that. If someone had run to the end of the street, I'd be like, nah, you're all right. Or there was always a stop, or what marathon runners call it, the wall.
Yeah.
I hit the wall numerous times during that training and the fight. They always say to you, don't let your adrenaline ruin your fight night. I didn't listen. Within about 30 seconds, I was really heavily breathing. But when you push yourself to the absolute edge, you know what you're capable of as a human being.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the biggest success. And when I'd won, I was really emotional. I was like, oh my God, I've won. But after, I don't think it would have mattered if I won or lost. I think it was the point of I had put myself in a position to do the best I could ever be. I lived like a fighter. I trained like a fighter. I ate like a fighter. I slept like a fighter. Everything was a fighter for 8 weeks. And the reason why it's my biggest achievement is that changed me. From the day I did that, it changed me. I've kept the weight off. I still go to the gym twice a week. But I also have a mindset of when it gets tough, bite down on the imaginary gum shield and say, this isn't as bad as it can be.
Yeah.
You can get through this, and work-wise or personal-wise, whatever that might be, you know more what you're capable of when you put yourself on the edge of a situation. And that's what I was saying before about, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
The worst that could have happened could have been catastrophic, really, getting into the ring with the size thing I got in with. But yeah, it's pushing yourself. And I don't like words like comfort zone, all this type of stuff, but just really, really put yourself on the edge and work out what am I capable of, and then when you know what you're capable of, truly capable of, I don't think there's much stopping you after that.
Okay, so let's say there's a big billboard what you can have right outside the Zen office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's lots and lots of people who work here, and on this big billboard, you can have any statement you want. Anything you want to say, any quote, anything what's going on. And the idea is that it'll have a butterfly effect and it will hopefully change the behaviour, maybe of one, maybe of two, maybe of all. What statement or message would you put on there? Now bear in mind, this can't be a massive paragraph. So you've got to really...
I'd probably put what animal is goofy. No, I wouldn't do that. That's still driving me mad. I think you have to say something. I don't want to be cheesy about it. It could be. I think win or learn. I think it is that. I don't think there's any losing involved. I think you go into a situation, you do your best, and that's one thing I want to mention is, I always go into a situation thinking I'm going to win.
Okay.
Yeah, I win as people say, when they talk about footballers and they say he's a winner.
Yeah. That's
how I describe me, but I don't win every time. But what I do is I would learn if I don't win.
Okay.
And it's like tonight. There's a football tournament with work. I will be going into that to win.
Yeah.
100%. And if I don't, then I'll be like, okay, fair enough. What's the reason that didn't happen? And people might say, it's only a 5-a-side tournament. Might put yourself together. But it's anything. So if, I might take a strategy to the MD, or I might take a plan to the management team, and it might be, I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that. But for me, it's around, okay, it's not being thrown out, but what do I learn to make that better? And I think people need to go into it honest and wanting to win and wanting to push themselves. And if they don't, that's okay. Not everyone has to win, but when you don't win, you learn, you don't lose, you don't go, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
Next time I'll do it differently. Next time I'll do something differently.
So, and these are quick fire round questions. So
I'll keep them sweet.
No. I want to say quick fire questions because I've got a lot I can go through. But if some of these answers are bigger answers, yeah, let's do bigger answers. But I guess some of them you'll be able to answer quite quick, and some you won't. Okay. And this I think is one of them. So give me 3 people, up and comers, maybe people who are out there already, and let's do it from an L&D point of view. I know you're not really. You've got 2 different mindsets, so let's do it from both. L&D people. Who are the 3 people who are big names who you watch closely at the moment? And maybe it's newcomers. Maybe it's people who've been in the industry for 20 years. I don't know.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to give you 3.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you 3 because I think 3 is limiting. I think what I look for when I am looking at learning and development is around what hat I'm wearing at any one time and where that benefit comes from. So at the minute, the hat that I've got on is around sales enablement.
Yeah.
It's about being close to the business and being relevant and understanding where the business is going. So for that, I'm quite lucky in the network that I've got. I've got people to turn to with that. So the people that I turn to is a guy called Jay Scrantham. So I work with Jay at O2. He's still there now. He works in sales enablement, within learning development, within corporate mid-market for O2. I'm literally probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a conversation with him for about 40 minutes.
Okay.
And it was a really insightful 40 minutes and gave me a lot to think about. That is, I don't look at people and go, I want to keep an eye on what they're saying or what they're doing. I keep it more close to home and reach out to people that are in my network and bounce off them. I don't think there's 3 people that I would say I keep an eye out for. There's people that I look at, potentially, do I follow them, do I not follow them? I wouldn't say I follow anyone with great interest. I don't say, I wonder what they're doing. I think I'll just look at people that are in my network who I can talk to on a basis. They know me, I know them. And yeah, I don't really keep an eye out for people in particular.
Okay, cool. What are your free, and I say free, but again, don't limit it to that. What's your, and Google can't be one.
Okay.
What's your free resources you're using right now to learn?
3 resources that I'm
Again,
learn.
Don't have to be free. It's just, I like free as a number.
No. I think something that I'm big on the minute is LinkedIn. Some people don't use it right. I don't want to see this inspirational quote here, this inspirational quote there. But I think there are things that are there, and you go, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't think about that before. Other resources that I'm using, I like to look further afield. I don't just like to look in learning development. I think that's one big advice that I'd give to anyone who wants to succeed or be more successful. I'm not saying I am successful. I'm just saying tools that I use. I think look at what businesses are doing in regards to the way that they're working. What tools can you use for planning, for example. So using planning tools, and there was a really good one. I'm not going to try and second guess who it was from. I think it might be from Amazon actually, where you treat the way you plan your time like you would your kitchen. So
Okay.
the thing that is absolutely 100% needs your focus is on the front burner. So that you're stirring that doesn't burn, doesn't catch. You've got a second one at the back which is still there, but it's just going to bubble away nicely. You don't need any real focus on that. You've got the chopping board, you've got the sink, you've got the fridge. You manage it like that. That's sort of a bit of a method which I'm sort of trialing at the minute. There's probably people that listen to this now screaming, saying, well, you missed some out. But as I say, it's only a trial. And this is quite cliche actually around what I'm using at the minute. I'm looking at a lot of TED Talks, simply because around some of the topics that are on there. I think a lot of stuff around leadership, being authentic, all of those things around the meaning of the reason why we do things.
Okay.
is quite big. That's one that I'm using, and probably the last one that I'm using. It's not a particular tool as such, and it's not Google. There are other ones out there. You can use Bing. Is looking at what's next. Where do I go from here? So where do I hang my hat for the next couple of years? Do I hang it in? You mentioned them before, CIPD camp. The Performance Institute. Where do you hang your hat? Where's the value for me as a professional? Where do I go next in regards to the resources that they can offer? I had a taste of the LPIs we talked about. We've met with this CIPD before. It's around what are they doing for the industry, and where the credibility within there around me for me to get the best resources and support. And that's what I'm looking at next.
Yeah, I think CIPD research is really good. I think LPI's research tends to be quite crowd funded. You know, a lot of it tends to be in a survey, and when they push them stats out. So, when, you know, what is something where you've kind of recently? What's something what you've learnt recently, and it non-professional?
Yeah. Okay.
What's something what you've learnt recently, and how did you do it? How did you learn it?
What have I learnt recently? And it is.
It could be anything. It don't have to be so recent. It could literally be, you know, the last thing you remember doing, where it was you learning something, a skill, a technique, I don't know, anything. And how did you do it?
Yeah, this is probably going to sound quite cheesy, I think, but I think no one teaches you how to be a dad. I think that is no one teaches you how to be a parent. I always remember when you get back with your child after the hospital and you get home and you sit there and you're looking at him or her and you go, what do we do next? And I'll never forget that first night. We took Harrison home. Kirsty went to bed and I was like, I've got this, don't you worry. We're going to crack open a bottle of champagne to celebrate the son coming home. I think United vs Liverpool was on the telly in the Europa League. And Kirsty went to bed and about half an hour later, all hell broke loose. You know, he was crying, I didn't know what to do. I think from that moment, I think it came quite real that I had no idea what I was doing. And what is great about being a parent, and I share some conversations that I have here with people, is we all have the same problems. You know, we're not sleeping for long periods of time. You know, the different challenges. You know, when do you take the sides off the cot? You know, he's 2 now. Do we keep him trapped there for forever so he doesn't get out in the middle of the night? No one ever teaches you that, and I think that is probably the biggest learning curve any human being can go through, quite frankly.
Okay. So, how did you do it?
How did I do it? Winning or learning? And I'll just bring it back to that. I think, you know, I don't read a book around how to parent. You don't look at other people. You look at the foundation your parents gave you.
Yep.
Which I did quite a good, you know, really good one with my mum and dad. And you take hits and tips from there. Ultimately, you try and do it your own way. You know, I've had great support from my wife. You know, she is a natural mum.
Okay.
And I've been able to sort of look towards her. But one thing I'll never forget is when Kirsty was going out for a night out, and so the lads said, you come out for a beer, and I used the term, no, sorry guys, I'm babysitting tonight. And then I quickly learned you don't babysit your own child. Yeah. Remember that, all right? That's a piece of advice that I'd give, is, you know, you being a dad. And I think you just learn on the job. You learn that, you know, different ways to put the nappy on or things not to do. And just, you know, you still learn every single day. You know, we're now coming to the terrible twos. How do you manage tantrums and potty training and all that type of thing? It will always be, every day would be a school day, I think, when it comes to being a dad.
Awesome. So, I guess just a couple more questions and then we're pretty much wrapping up. So let's pretend you can fast forward to you being 80 years old. Yeah, so the 80-year-old you is sat there and they're trying to scream, they're giving you advice because we're older now. What's one bit of advice they're giving you right now what you're still struggling to take? Deep, right?
I think chill out. Okay. I think calm down, take a breath. I think one of the pieces of feedback that I constantly get is stop. You know, not everything is a drama. Not everything is on fire. You know, let's just calm down. And I think the biggest piece of advice that I probably would give myself, being 80, if I do live that long, I don't know if I will, the lifestyle I have, is I generally, you know, calm down, take a deep breath, look around you, and then is this the worst thing that's going to happen? No. And I think, you know, I think be less emotional, take the emotion out of it, and just sit back and be more balanced. I think that's what the advice would be.
Okay, cool. So I asked you to give me some numbers at the start.
You did, yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing: you're on a desert island.
Yes.
Yeah, and these numbers represented an item on a list what I have.
Okay.
So your numbers are related to this: an ice cube, a slipper, a picture frame, some toothpaste, and a sponge. You're on a desert island. What do you do with these items?
Well, the ice cube is a difficult one. I'd probably say I'd probably have to consume that quite quickly. I'm assuming if it's going to be a hot desert island.
Yeah.
What was the second one?
Slipper.
Slipper. I'd probably have to cut that up and make a hat because I'm terrible in the sun.
Okay.
If everyone sees my picture, I'm definitely too white for the sun. So that would be a hat to keep the head in check.
Okay.
Toothpaste was the other one.
Yep.
Well, it's not going to be great, is it? Do you know what I mean? Desert island. So I think using that sparingly to keep me breath fresh would be one I'd use.
And then you've got a picture frame and a sponge left.
I'd probably use the picture frame and the sponge together. So I don't know actually. Would I use the sponge for its natural purposes? I don't know. I'm trying to think back to Tom Hanks. I might put a face on it and talk to it maybe.
Okay.
On the sponge. It could be friend maybe.
Okay. Branch question. What would you call it?
It's got to be SpongeBob, isn't it?
SpongeBob. Okay.
It's got to be. And the picture frame, I'd probably do it to reflect the light maybe and start a fire.
Okay.
I say that's possible. I don't know if it is.
Who knows? So, I guess just wrapping up now. So, Zen. Tell me what Zen can offer to people who are listening.
What can Zen offer? I think, this is a fantastic company. A fantastic company that puts, its staff, its customers, its suppliers first. That's what we talked about before. That is the fundamental values of the company. I think what can Zen offer? I think Zen could offer an alternative in the marketplace. We are constantly winning which awards, for customer service, and I'm talking 97%, 94%, 95%, versus other companies down in the 60s, the 70s, the 50s, the 40s. This is an award-winning place, award-winning service. And that's reflected in the service you get, the product you get. I think for our partners, I think you've got a division which is easy to do business with. It's a division where we want to support you. We only grow as fast as you can grow. So it's in our interest to have, people invested in your business to help you and support you along the way. And I think, ultimately, Zen for Rochdale, local, I'm not local to Rochdale, but Zen does a lot in the environment, a lot for the local community. I think that's what Zen can offer. It's definitely a giving back organisation.
Okay, 2 questions and then we are done.
Okay.
I asked you at the start, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yep.
Fundamentally, we're constantly always growing. Yes. And they're growing, they're learning, and we never really grow up. So, same question what I asked you at the start, knowing that you never stop. What do you want to be when you grow up?
What do I want to do when I grow up? I think the next couple of years for me is an interesting one. I think people are always scared to say they're going to move on from an organisation. I think I would have ambitions to potentially own my own business. Doing what, when, where, I don't know. I like the idea of being my own boss. Fundamentally, is that a reality? I don't know. So doing something, owning my own business or being in charge of more of my own destiny would be something I would like.
Okay. And so wrapping up quickly, where can people find out a bit more about Mark Howarth? Where can they go?
So I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, all of those things. You can email me directly, which we can share that as well.
Yeah.
I think, why have I done this with you? Well, you're quite forceful for one. Two is, I do have a network, but there's untapped network out there. I want people to get in contact, and the things we've talked about today, I want people to challenge me. I want people to say, I disagree with this point, I agree with this point, and ultimately get in contact. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've done this, fundamentally. Or you can call the office directly and speak to me. I'm open to that as well.
Awesome. Ace. Cheers, Mark. Thanks.
Cheers, Danny. Thank you.
Bye-bye.